Welcome back to Once Upon a Tiny Farm. My name's Drew. In today's video, we're going to be planting our third bed here in our 400 square foot garden. And we're going to be planting our first onions. We're going to be planting more lettuce, and we're going to be planting green beans. So stick around. All right, so I need to really get these onions in the ground to let them grow. I really want to establish or grow some full-sized bulbs this year. And the way that I've done that in the past is with fertilizing properly. And last year, 2 years ago, I grew the best onions I ever had. And when I did that, I was using bone meal. I used bone meal to fertilize when I planted them. And I got really nice bulbs. Last year, I did not fertilize with that, and I got pretty bad results. I didn't get a nice sized bulb. So this year, I'm gonna make sure that I get some big onions for storage. So I grew two varieties. I grew a few of a heirloom yellow onion. It's called the Alsa Craig. I grew them in this, I did a video on winter sowing, and I did a couple of them in here. So these grow into a really big yellow bulb, and I'm hoping to get some big ones this year, so I have some of that. My other varieties that I grew are a red storage onion, also an heirloom variety. This variety of red onion is called the Rosa di Milano, and it's the first time that I tried growing it, but I used to grow a hybrid variety, but I want to be able to save some seeds from it, so I'm growing more heirloom varieties of onions. So I planted them two different ways. I did some where I sowed like 3 to 5 seeds in this tray. So I'm going to plant these as clumps, and they'll grow. Maybe not as big as if I planted them individually with just one onion, but they will grow still in the clumps. I'm also going to plant them individually. I sowed these just in an open tray, and these actually did much better growing this way. I also planted these in this open tray a lot earlier than I planted these in the 50 cell tray. But anyway, they all need to get into the ground, and some onions might be bigger than others. Doesn't matter, we're going to plant them anyway. And what I'm going to do is plant them about 6 inches apart. And the reason I've done them planted like 4 inches apart, closer before, but it's really important to have that spacing to be able to come in with a stirrup hoe or some kind of weeding tool to keep the weeds away from around the onions, because they don't compete well with weeds. So you need to make sure that there's enough space in between them so that they'll grow without getting too many weeds near them. I'm going to plant these Alsa Craig onions right in front here. They did pretty well in this winter sowing method. I started them pretty early in February, and I like the results that I got from this tray. So I hope we get some big yellow onions here. After I plant all of these, I am going to come in and fertilize with the bone meal pretty generously, or all around the areas that I planted these onions. Here we go. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row here, and then I'm just going to go another 6 inches here away and do another row, and I'm going to fit as many of these in as I can here. So that's my plan with the onions. All right, so my battery died on my good camera yesterday, so I didn't get to finish filming what I was trying to show. But I planted all the onions in this first bed here, and I actually didn't watch my first video that I did with my actual plan that I wanted to follow, because in that video I did 7 across, and here I ended up doing 6 onions across. But that's okay. I ended up getting 15 rows with 6 across, about 6 inches apart from each other. So I have a mixture here of just single onions like this, and I have some that are in plugs with like 3 or 4 or 5 onions, seeds that I planted as a clump. So 15 times 6 is 90. I just did the math on that. So if we had only done just one single onion, that we'd only get 90 onions in this space. And some of my onions are just single onions, so I can try to get a bigger bulb. But about half of them were sown in that 50 cell tray as clumps of 3 to 5 onions. So really, we're probably going to get hopefully over 200 onions in this bed, so that'll be good. And like I mentioned, I didn't get to show it on video. I used the fertilizer, the bone meal. After I planted everything, I just sprinkled it around the soil, around each plant, and then I watered everything in really good. So the onions are all set, and hopefully late July, like August, we'll be ready to start picking these out of the ground to harvest. And in this middle bed here, I just did another bed of lettuce. Actually had trouble with these transplants, got a little leggy, so I actually started another tray, and I have a good feeling about half of these are going to die, because I know that when the stem gets leggy like that, they don't often survive. They lay down on the soil and they die in the heat. But that happens. I think I had them at a spot in my greenhouse that didn't get it was actually blocked from getting enough sun, and that's what happened. So I'm gonna have to plant some more lettuce, but I have the second bed of lettuce planted. And back here is going to be green beans, and my plan for the green beans is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, about at 6 inches apart, and that's very, very intense spacing. We might get healthier plants if we just did like 3 or 4 rows. But if we're trying to grow the most food in the least amount of space, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to plant them 6 inches apart. We're just going to grow a ton of green beans in this space. Here's the variety of green beans I'm growing. It's just called Provider. It's a green bean. Very nice, juicy, good crunch green bean, and 50 days, so doesn't take too long to come up, and the weather is right, so we are just going to put these in, and I'm pretty generous with the beans. Just drop a bunch, and we will, that was too much. Not that much. In my market garden, I use the earthway seeder to seed these, and the earthway seeder gets a lot of criticism, but it does really well with bigger seeds like this. So that's how I usually do it, but you do it by hand. Just take your time and drop them in there. Do it a little bit better than I'm doing. Getting this last row of green beans in. There we go. And now I'm just going to turn over the soil in these little gullies that I seeded in, and these will get watered in too. And then this whole row number 3 here, will be all done and seeded. And then we're going to have to put together and weed this area for the last raised bed here. So I'm gonna have to get that done in a few days, because my June 1st crops are coming up very soon. So that'll be a project to work on this weekend. So it's been about 2 weeks since I planted this bed of onions, lettuce, and green beans, and as you can see here, there is a lot of weeds in here in with the onions. I just wanted to show that this is a really important step. You have your onions that have been weeded, look really nice, and then this side over here that I didn't get to yet, where you can't even see the onions. At this stage, you want to get all these onions up out of the ground so they can grow without any competitions from the weeds. And doing this in a raised bed, this is where the raised bed comes in handy, because I do a lot of in-ground raised beds, and it's just a few inches lower than this, is a little bit more raised up, and somehow it's always a little bit easier on your back and your body. Having to cultivate in a raised bed, it's just easier. So it takes some time, but I like to do this either in the morning or at night when it's coolest, because I don't like to bend down for too long when it's really, really hot. It's just not fun. But you're gonna want to cultivate all this like I'm about to, and get around the lettuce heads as well. That's better. Takes a little bit of time, but if you have the right attitude, weeding's not so bad. In fact, it can be relaxing if you have the right mindset to do it. But it's like anything in life, I found weeding, you got to put in the work now to reap the rewards later. So you have to think of it like that. So now that we've weeded these, they'll grow unencumbered at least for the next few weeks from weeds, and it'll give the lettuce, I'm only going to cultivate one time after I transplant, and in a few weeks this will be ready to harvest. So everything will be good now and ready to go. All right, that's gonna wrap up this video on the latest installment of our 400 square foot garden. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.